So very good afternoon to you all, and this is going to be a very challenging session, the post lunch. So, but I think we have a senior colleagues and an exciting topic which is all about digital. So hope we'll keep you awake and interesting and well engaged. So first, I think it's absolute privilege to be here and to moderate this session on digital HR. We all know, I think, the remote working and the flexible work practices has led to significance of digital HR. And the adoption, and it has evolved pre-pandemic, during the pandemic and the post-pandemic evolution. I think there is a significant change, and in fact when I look at the research, the adoption of digital HR has moved from almost 40% to 70% in the last 2 years. I think every organization is in their different phases of journey, how the digital HR is evolving and what is changing. To get a perspective, I think we have two senior colleagues to share their interesting insights, valuable insights on that. So we will take three eras. I think first we will talk about the pre-pandemic and during the pandemic and the post-pandemic, how the digital HR is evolving. So with that, maybe we will first start, first question to you, Stanley, in terms of the pre-pandemic. What do you think the level of the maturity of the digital HR, and how the organizations, what they are doing at that point in time prior to 2020?
So thanks Prasad, and good afternoon to every one of you. It's a very relevant question. I think pre-pandemic was a time when people were experimenting with different digital modes of HR, right? And I would probably categorize the maturity levels into four. It could be probably a very preliminary level of say beginner, to an intermediate level, to an advanced level, to an expert level, right? So except for the big companies and the large corporations, who were probably at an advanced or a expert level, many mid-level and smaller size companies were at a beginner level, right, or slightly at an intermediate level. And we had our own challenges as our company. We started our digital journey somewhere around 2015, and yes, we had challenges in terms of investments and in terms of what we need as a digital HR, right? We had automation, we had digitization in different pockets, right? Recruitment was doing its own piece, and your talent management was doing its own piece. But how do you marry everything together? That was a huge challenge. And by the time the pandemic hit, everything was put into the shelf, and yes, and when we came back post pandemic, a lot of investments went there, and I think as a company, as an organization, we made a huge stride now, and we are actually continuing that journey right now.
Gautam, you would like to add to that?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I echo with what Stanley said, but before the pandemic era, there were, as he said, pockets of excellence. Like if you look into the technology sector and the healthcare sector, they were in a pretty advanced stage of adopting HR digitization, whereas if you look into the manufacturing sector and the government sector, they were more with the legacy HR systems and processes, right? There were, as he said, pockets of excellence. Mobile enablement was there with some kind of applications like leave applications, like updating your own personal data. But most of the organizations, they were struggling to build up an HRMS systems, where in the near phase of implementation, they were struggling with integration with the allied HR systems, and that created a kind of a view that did we have the word remote management at that point of time? I would say no. They were more like flexible work hours as HR policies in the organization, and HR change management with respect to digitization was just taking shape. That's where we were post pre-pandemic stage.
Great. So I think 2020, I think we all welcomed COVID into our lives. I think apart from the pain, I think the most exciting is a lot of parents were very happy because there was a complete lockdown and all the children were there with their parents around them, right? But I think there is a massive transformation which took place in the workplace during the pandemic, Stanley. So how did you guys manage the commitments that we make to our customers, because especially in the tech industry, in BFSI sector, so on and so forth, they are highly critical missions, and they are SLA driven and impacts significant amount of money, and it impacts the economy. So how did you guys manage to ensure the business continuity?
Right. So I think none of us we expected the pandemic to hit us, and when it really actually hit us, we were amongst the first companies to declare a work from home and remote working, right? And I still remember that day when in a matter of few hours, we just put all the desktops and the laptops into carton boxes and shipped them via cabs and buses and trucks, whatever means of transport that was available, right? But as Prasad said, we had a huge challenge in meeting customer expectations, right? And the first step that we took was setting the expectations with the customer. And I'm sure they were also going through the same phase of trying to understand how do we address this issue. And I think in the first couple of months, a lot of investments were made in terms of data security and in terms of shifting from desktops to laptops. That was a huge change and makeover that we did. And also at the same time convincing customers, yes, it's absolutely safe environment for people to work out of their hometowns or wherever they were. And once there were no escalations, as a company we actually took care of that. They are saying that there won't be any escalations in terms of any data breach or anything, and luckily enough we didn't have any incidents of any data breach. I think that built the confidence in the customers, and that helped us a lot when we actually moved forward and started getting more business from them.
Gautam, would you like to add?
Yeah, I would like to add, these are the things of course we also did, so I don't want to repeat. But during this period, the important criteria was like to win trust over the clients, but the clients also had a challenge in terms of their supply line, and they had their own challenges, and some of the projects which were in pipeline, some of the normal transformation projects which were in pipeline were stalled, right? And new kind of projects started emerging. There were a lot of requirements which came in terms of migration to the cloud, because that's the first step of being digital. That's where most of the companies, they were either they have migrated part of their infrastructure, they were testing how it was at that point of time, and then there were organizations who wanted to migrate to the cloud at one go. But when they were migrating to the cloud at one go, because they were also not sure and of the situation and the circumstances, there were the hyperscalers which came in. So there were migrations going out in Azure, migration going out in AWS, and migration going out in Google, maybe for the same client, and that required a skill gap which organizations like us we encountered, and that's where HR played a very key role in understanding the demand of such critical skills during the time of the pandemic, how to hone these skills out from within the organization, encouraging employees with lesser workloads to take up these skills and retrain and cross train themselves so as to meet the pipeline opportunities in terms of migration. And as the same time HR played a critical role in going remote recruitment and remote onboarding of people, which was a sea change in the way we were operating upon, right? And all this created a kind of a dilemma in the minds of the employees, because at one point of time we are saying that for safe workplace it is flexible and remote work from home. At the same time we are saying you have to take up multiple skills. These are the skills which you need to take up, because that's the demand pipeline which we have, and that's where the wellness and employee engagement became the key in terms of the pandemic, right?
So I think this is the era where there is an inflection in the IT industry. I think while we all spoke about the global delivery models, I think this is during this particular period, I think people started realizing that it can be really delivered from anywhere, any place. And it also required a lot of mindset change for the managers who are managing people, because they always want their team members to sit next to them in delivering it, right? So I think the post-pandemic, one of the things is the relevance of digital HR has changed from the business continuity to how do we enable people to work in a hybrid work environment, enabling them to work with speed, with high level of personalization, and with faster reach to global talent, and which is impacting the collaboration. How do we engage, how do we build culture when people are not coming to office? When I look at the research, I think close to 60 to 70% in every organization are the people who joined in the last 2 to 3 years, because we are also gone through the great resignation period, especially in the tech sector. So with this kind of environment, I think with the new reality set in, how was the new digital HR vision and plan shaping up in your organization? Can you talk about some of the transformation initiatives that you people are driving to cater to the workforce needs of the current environment?
Okay. So in terms of transformation, I think the first thing that we did was a major culture change, right? During pandemic, people are working remotely, though we can monitor their work remotely, but still we wanted to kind of bring in a very transformational cultural change within the organization. We as an organization earlier were used to sending reminders, even for getting an approval, you send 1 or 2 reminders to the managers, and then that's where the action will take place, right? So as a cultural change, the first step that we took was we launched an initiative, something called OYG, Own Your Game, right? And we said we are going to stop all reminders from today. And if somebody has accountability towards a particular task, be it coding, be it writing a code, or be it kind of delivering a project within a certain timeline, there won't be any reminders either from customers or from your managers or from your team leads. You are supposed to own it and kind of close that work. Initially there was a lot of resistance, but what we found was in a matter of 1 month's time, through influence that we kind of generated through the leadership team, after 1 month, everybody in the organization, right from the top person right to the last guy in the supply chain, I think everybody kind of got hold of that culture, and things were delivered on time. So that was a huge cultural shift that we did, as a initiative. The second thing that we did was we kind of tried to integrate all the different systems that was there. People, the systems that were working in silos. So we thought of bringing everything together, and that was a huge transformation exercise that we kind of conducted, and we integrated all the systems together. So systems started talking to one another, and things became easier. The third thing that we did was we did away with all the mundane approval processes. Unless there was a cost involved in a decision, other than that, every other approval we kind of did away with. It was kind of a surprise for the organization, for a lot of people, but I think that came as a huge relief, especially to the mid-level managers, so that it freed up a lot of their time. In terms of digitization of HR, it was during this phase, during the COVID phase, we made a huge investment, right? We were contemplating it for the last 5 years, but now we said, better late than never, let's invest. And we made a huge investment during the COVID, and now it's almost 2 years or 3 years past the COVID, and the journey is still continuing. We still not completed that exercise, but I think people are feeling the vibes of having a good HR system and other systems, where a lot of automation is happening. And just to give this information, we had a very low attrition rate. Even during the time when there was a huge attrition outflow, going on in the industry, we were having one of the lowest. One of the reasons was we kind of introduced one automation there, where a chatbot will kind of interact with the employees at periodical milestones, right? As Prasad said, close to 90% of the workforce was new, and most of them were hired during the pandemic. So it was very important for us to know about their joining experience, about their work experience, about how their journey is continuing in Exaware. So what we did was, we used this chatbot to interact with these employees at periodical milestones of 30, 60, 90 days and 120 days, right? And instead of the HR team spending time meeting with every new joiner, this chatbot used to reveal some information and it will kind of generate a data which will kind of show up only people to meet category. Only those critical 10% or 5% of people is where the HR team interacted, and that actually freed up a lot of time for the HR team. At the same time, we also could kind of meet people who were in the red and amber category and probably stop that attrition from happening.
You would like to quickly add maybe 30 seconds?
Yeah, the models which have evolved out of the post-pandemic era is, we are together kind of a model, and together but apart. When we come together in office but we don't meet, if we come in different days, together but remote when we work on collaborative platforms, and remote and isolated when we work differently. Now these four models which have emerged is known as the flexible hybrid model, and these four models are here to stay, and the evolution of digital HR has accelerated because you need to give a better experience to all these four models for employees adopting these four models at any point of the time during their journey in the organization. That's what we need.
See, one of the fundamental changes also, just to add to both my colleagues, is we're all talking about a lot of automation and introduction of data and AI in our regular day-to-day practices. A couple of examples from Wipro. What we done is we really relooked at our entire technology landscape that we deployed from the employee experience point of view. We used a design thinking approach to look at how the employee journey would be, especially people working from really remote and not working for metros, access to connectivity, so on and so forth. There's so many challenges. So if they need to do their jobs much more faster, okay, how can you enable that? Okay, one small example is earlier if a employee needs to apply a leave, okay, there are close to 9 clicks employee has to do. Log on to Wipro.com, leave module, annual leave, how many days, so on and so forth. We introduced AI which will today, like I am talking to Siri, I can just say, hey, apply leave on 15th of September for 1 day, that's done. Okay, and I can ask how many days of leave I have for the rest of the year, it will tell me. Okay, so it is simplified to that extent where the employees can ask, hey, look, what are the training programs that I need to conduct? Okay, what are the opportunities that I have that I can get into, right? So that's the power of the digital, and that's how we really want to build the scale, okay, to cater to the future opportunity that this industry offers. So coming to the next question, maybe I'll go to Gautam this time first. So Gautam, I think given this kind of accelerated change which we are seeing from a technology adoption, from your perspective, how do you think the organizations are equipping the HR function? How the structures are changing? Do you guys have a digital HR team in your structure? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, I mean this is the most pertinent question because today HR needs to have the digital intelligence in the organization. And what do we mean by digital intelligence? It stands on 4 pillars. The first pillar is having a digital mindset. Okay. And what is digital mindset? You need to unlearn what are the legacy systems, what are the existing processes, you need to rethink and you need to relearn and put in the new policies, processes in place, align the processes to the tools and connect the employees through the digital platform. That's the digital mindset which the HR person needs to adopt. The second thing a HR person needs to do in terms of digital intelligence is build up a digital culture, which means not just use the digital tools for survival, you use the digital tools for excellence, right? You need to discover the digital tools, you need to talk to your employees, find out how to further improvise those digital tools and which will benefit you and your organization. Third thing, the HR people have to be equipped with digital data literacy in terms of harnessing the power of data, using data analytics to make informed decisions about employee engagement, employee wellness program initiatives, about employee workforce planning part of the requirement, right? And the fourth thing which organizations need to equip them is to they should keep their eyes and ears open as to how to align their current opportunities which they see in hand to the technology, the digital technology, so as to reap the benefits of the digital platform. Now, in terms of the structure, many organizations will have specialized HR people who understands technology as well as HR in the organization as a different cell. They will have a different analytics cell, but whatever cell you have, you need to work in a matrix organization to launch these kind of digital initiatives, because without talking to business partners, without talking to the business leaders across the globe, if the organization has disparate locations across the globe, it will not be possible for them to lead the digital initiatives into a successful journey, right. The other part of it is always, there should be encouragement in working with cross-functional teams in this kind of an initiative. In LTIMindtree, we have a digital transformation cell. I happen to be part of the cell, leading that initiative. But then I work in a matrix organization with leveraging the power of technology, leveraging the power of practice, who are helping us, in implementing these tools in the journey.
So, Stanley, this question is to you. I think with 60-70% of the people joined in the last 3-4 years in every organization, we're working remotely, not coming to office, which as an industry we are facing that challenge. So, how do you manage the culture, please?
Okay. So, culture is something that we tried different ways to kind of build in certain culture, right. We don't even know the person, we haven't met the person, right. We don't even know the background, right, and they're all kind of located in different remote parts of the country. So, one thing that we did, at least when the COVID eased out a bit, what we did was, the first thing that we tried out, and that was a hugely successful initiative. We brought Hexaware into their town, right. So, we said Hexaware in your town, right. So, we had the senior leadership team along with HR teams travel to their particular locations, and then we used to gather all the employees who were there in the vicinity of that particular town or a city, and we brought them everyone together, and whatever we used to do in induction, and we brought them along with their families, right, and whatever inductions that we used to do virtually, we kind of reran the same thing in front of their families, right, and we kind of build in and try to propagate what Hexaware culture is all about, right, and when the leadership team came and spoke to them one-on-one or as a group, met them, interacted with them, I think that increased that kind of sense of belonging to the company, right. And the second thing that we did was, it was more of kind of, we did not enforce people to come back to office. We still said, we will continue with remote working, we'll continue with the hybrid mode of working. At the same time, it also threw up some other challenges like moonlighting and all that, right. But we took care of that front, and yes, building that culture of belongingness was something that we kind of did the maximum.
So, Gautam, what is your advice or guidance to organizations which are embarking on this digital HR transformation journey?
So, my advice is, you need to have a objective and a vision in place for the digital transformation journey, and this objective and vision needs to be aligned with the organization vision objectives. That is the first part. Second thing is, one needs to go into and delve into what is there currently in terms of the digital landscape in the organization. Sure, all organizations are doing something digital, they have initiated in some way or the other. Understand what has been done, what are the infrastructure tools which are available, and what is the capability of the people in the organization to adapt the digital journey. Once you understand that, then one would need to put up the target state for the digital journey, derive a plan in place, put up a budget in place, get the budget approved, get a leadership buy-in, get a executive sponsor in the organization who would lead this initiative, That's very important. It has to be a top-down initiative, otherwise it may fail. Thereafter, as you talked of design thinking, you need to have design workshops, because HR digitization journey cuts across all verticals, all business units in the organization. You need to have a design thinking workshops, identifying spokes in every business unit, involving the business HR partners of every business unit to design the to-be state, the employee experience journey, from onboarding to employee transition to personal transitions to offboarding and the alumni. The entire transition journey needs to be mapped in a design workshop and get a mock-up ratified and approved by the user community who would be using it. Thereafter, start the implementation, track the implementation. Then you need to take care of the security aspects of it, because HR data is very sensitive, and this data you need to understand how it would be encrypted, where it will be encrypted, will it be at a platform level encryption, which of the fields needs column level encryption, especially for systems like POS systems in the organization, right? And then you design and derive the KPIs out of the engagement, have target state for the KPIs, and once you implement that, you monitor the KPIs and with respect to the targets achieved, and in fact then tweak the targets and the KPIs based on the situation. And it's a continuous journey. HR digitization is just not one project, it is a continuous transformation project in the organization.
Thanks. So I think we have another 1.5 minute. I think just to summarize, I think the exciting part is we are part of an industry which is one of the fastest growing. We are a $200 billion industry which is poised to grow to $350 billion by 2026. And the biggest imperative for that is a talent. Apart from ease of doing business, regulatory framework, global brands, so on and so forth. So if you need to scale the organization, I think how we deploy technology to do the workforce transformation, to manage the hire to process in a much more simplified, deliver employee experience. Okay, while business is talking about the customer experience, I think the employee experience is equally important to attract and retain and nurture them within the organization. So I think having a good digital HR vision, training the HR folks, having a proper change management processes to orient the business folks to use the digital tools that are available to develop talent will be, I think, decide how the industry is going to grow. I think with this we'll conclude, and any questions, 1 or 2 questions we can take. Thank you. Yeah.
So my question is to Stanley, where you mentioned that you all didn't force people to come back to office. How did you all measure the productivity and checked on the moonlighting concept which came in?
Yeah, so in terms of moonlighting, the first check that we did was at the time of hiring itself. Though many new joiners did not like it, we did a UAN check on the PF, right? So that threw up a whole list of companies where they worked without even revealing it. And we have a very strict code of conduct policy, where even if you don't reveal that information, you are fired on the spot, right? And that actually helped us, and word spread, and that actually helped us to control moonlighting. In fact, we caught the first case of moonlighting probably about 7 years ago, not even during pandemic.
Okay, but that will be only if they are registered for a provident fund, otherwise it is difficult to find.
Yeah, obviously that handicap is always there.
Okay.
But that will be a percentage will be very, very low.
Okay. And how about productivity?
Sorry?
How did you all measure the productivity in terms of how employees are productive who are working at home and who are working at office?
So we used to always measure them on deliverables, right? So it can be time taken, it can be time bound, or it could be kind of when they finish the work. So the focus was more on finishing the work, and that's how we used to measure productivity.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, on that note, we'd like to thank.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASScom YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.